Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us this evening. My guest today is Councilmember Mitch O Farrell, who represents the Armenian American community in the Little Armenia neighborhood in the Los Angeles City Council. Thank you for joining us, Councilman O Farrell, and welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
I wanted to just start off with you telling us a little bit about what's been going on in the district since you took office. I believe it was July.
July 1st was the first day in office, and let's see, that is going on 8 months now, and it's been a very fast 8 months. We started things off with a neighborhood walk back in July, and our first neighborhood walk was done in the historic Filipino town area. So we do monthly walks. We've introduced pieces of legislation that will help address the affordable housing crises in Los Angeles. I'm working on environmental issues at the Los Angeles River. We're working on streetscape improvement plans across the district. So we really did hit the ground running.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things that has just happened recently is President Obama's Promise Zone program. Tell us a little bit about that and how this district is impacted by it.
It's very significant. It's great news for the East Hollywood area, Little Armenia, and the neighborhoods that have been traditionally overlooked, quite frankly. And what the Promise Zone designation means is that the areas that are in the coverage area are eligible for up to $500 million of federal grants over the next 10 years that address things like affordable housing, education, workforce investment. So this is a really wonderful resource that's coming our way, and my office is working very actively in helping to secure some of those grants. And the way it works is that the federal government will give us preference on the grant funding that we apply for. So it's not a check just doesn't get written. We actually apply for the grants, but we do get preference for them so that we can lift our neighborhoods out of poverty and into a better way of life. Mm-hmm. So it's a neighborhood building initiative, and I intend on being there every step of the way.
There's a pledge in the process that it is going to create jobs and become an opportunity for the community to grow. Can you just elaborate on that a little bit?
So without resources, there is no growth. Without economic development and investment, there's just inertia. And so we are a thriving, growing city. This gives us a tool so that we can guide our own growth and determine our own future. And as I said, it's a 10-year program. So for over the next 10 years, we will be able to design the building blocks ourselves on a long-term sustainability to lift these neighborhoods out of poverty. Some of them have a poverty rate of up to 40%. So this is a significant grant, and I couldn't be more thrilled.
Mm-hmm. And how do organizations go about looking into it or applying for grants?
Sure, there are signatories that were part of the original designation, such as Youth Policy Institute. That's one of the major signatories. And so they will act as a fiduciary and I guess you could say, a pass-through. So what my office will do is we'll work closely with all of the nonprofits that are interested in helping to access these funds for the purposes that they're intended to serve. And we're working closely with Youth Policy Institute, YPI, LAUSD, other partners to create more park space, job opportunities, et cetera.
You're certainly not new to the area, although you're a new councilman. Tell us a little about that. What has your involvement been in the district?
Sure. I moved to Hollywood 32 years ago, in January of 1982. I was a very young man, and I was schooled at that time just by living here, and everything was so new to me. And I lived at Orange and Hawthorne in a very crowded apartment. So I got to know Hollywood just up close and personal at that time, and it's a very clear snapshot image of those early days for me. I became very aware of the state of things in Hollywood, that maybe it had seen better days. That's also when I became aware of the burgeoning Armenian population in Hollywood. Fast forward a few years, I have lived in different parts of the district over the years, settled in Glassell Park where I live today, and became active in my community back in the 1990s. Just neighborhood activism, improvement projects, etc. And then in 2002, my predecessor, now Mayor Eric Garcetti, hired me for his staff. And then, of course, through my professional work, I became more involved in issues across the district. And then last year, I was elected the council member.
What are some of the changes and issues that you're seeing impacting this particular district that would need the community to come together? Not the Armenian community, but the community and the district to come together for people to work together to resolve?
Sure. So district in general, the 13th district is a microcosm of all of Los Angeles. We have the greatest level of diversity. We have competing pressures. I always say this, that if Los Angeles is the melting pot of the United States, the 13th district is the melting pot of Los Angeles. So what we do here has significant implications for the rest of the city. And some of the concerns and pressures that the city is facing, jobs. We still have a 10% unemployment rate. This is the definition of a jobless recovery because the economy is in recovery. The recession is over by all respected indicators. So we have to bring economic development and the right kind of growth here. And the affordability gap with our housing is growing wider by the day. That's why I've introduced legislation to address that. So I would say the two big things that the City Council has some control over is providing more affordable housing opportunities for people, seniors, working families, our homeless population, our veterans, and then just job opportunity and economic growth. And we do that by being actively engaged in development projects, economic growth projects, cultivating job growth and getting some of the companies, instead of leaving Los Angeles like Occidental Petroleum is now, let's court some of these companies and bring them to Los Angeles instead.
What are some of the specific growth projects that you're talking about, and how will they impact the residents living
Sure.
here?
There are, let's start in Hollywood here. There are lots of things happening in Hollywood, East Hollywood and Hollywood proper. We have several multi-million-dollar projects underway right now. They are providing tens of thousands of jobs. So we have a really nice construction boom right now. And it's downtown and it's Hollywood, so we want to keep that momentum going. And these are world-class, what would you say, I'll say iconic, catalytic projects that are coming to Hollywood that will change the way Hollywood looks and the way it feels. We're leaving that suburban model that was still in evidence when I moved here 32 years ago, and we're really inventing our own urban model for Los Angeles, and we're doing that here in Hollywood. So that's a good thing. And then I know how to do affordable housing, and we're doing that in LA. My concern is that it's not happening across the city like it needs to. We need to make sure that people are housed where they want to live, where they do live, and near where they work. So those are some dynamics that are happening right now as we speak. And lastly, we're doing a lot of streetscape improvements, meaning we're actually going into the major corridors, the major boulevards, and we're improving the sidewalks and the crosswalks and making them safer for pedestrians. And we're adding bike lanes, and so that's an area of focus of mine too. And that also has its own economic development benefits because that's job creation too. And then we're developing more parks. So we do have a lot of things going on, and I'm just thrilled to be working with the community to keep these visions going and refine them and actually build things while I'm the council member.
Let's talk about Little Armenia. I was around when your predecessor, Jackie Goldberg, proclaimed this area Little Armenia. From your perspective as a city councilman, what does Little Armenia mean, and how much of it is incumbent on the citizens to make it happen?
I would say Little Armenia looms large. I cannot think of Hollywood without Little Armenia. The impact is so profound that there is a permanent stamp on what Hollywood means because of the presence of Little Armenia. And that's been the case for a long time. So it means everything to have complete community involvement. And so I've really enjoyed the cleanups and the walks that I've done, because we've done several now in the East Hollywood, Little Armenia area, and we do them monthly. So I would say that our constituents in all of our neighborhoods guide their own destiny. And that's really how I cut my teeth in Glassell Park as well. I wasn't satisfied with what I saw when I went outside my door. And I am perfectly comfortable with people coming to me as their council member and saying, look, I don't like what I'm seeing on my street, how can you help me? That's a wonderful thing to happen, because then we can devise a plan and work together, and that's the adventure in all this. It is, at my best, I will work on behalf of the interests of the constituents that I serve, and it's a collaboration.
Talk about the cleanup effort that is coming up in a couple of weeks.
Sure. We're doing the Hollywood Beautification Project, and it is a regular annual event, and my office is one of the co-sponsors along with all of the organizations in East Hollywood and Little Armenia. It's going to be on March 8th, starts at 10:30 a.m. at the intersection of Alexandria and Hollywood. It'll be part resource fair, part cultural enrichment, cultural exchange, cleanup, all around sort of community pride event, and I'm looking very forward to it. It's my first one as council member.
Great, and we hope some of our viewers will take part in that project. We'll be right back after a commercial break. Welcome back, everyone. If you're just joining us, my guest this evening is Councilmember Mitch O Farrell, representing the 13th District in LA City Council. Welcome back, Councilman. We're talking about Little Armenia, and we touched on the beautification project on March 8th at 10 a.m. and hopefully a lot of you can come. It's at Alexandria and Hollywood, and come help clean the neighborhood. But more importantly, there's the role of each individual citizen to make the community more vibrant, and especially in Little Armenia. What do you think, how have you observed the Armenians in Little Armenia? How are they engaged in civic life, and is there room for improvement?
I think that the organizations in Little Armenia are very engaged, very empowered, and yes, there's always room for improvement. I think that collaboration is key. It's the way to really ultimately reach what you want your neighborhood to become, and I always encourage that. So that's why I'm excited about this event on March 8th. That's a good thing. But when you combine forces, and I would say 9 things out of 10 are of mutual interest, both with the neighborhoods, the residential community, the merchant community, the businesses. And that's really a holistic approach to improving our neighborhood. From that collaboration, from something as basic as a neighborhood cleanup, can come ideas that could result in capital improvements. I've seen it happen, working with the Chambers of Commerce, which could result in an application for an infrastructure improvement, for example. That was the genesis of one of the improvements on Hollywood Boulevard. It was a very minor streetscape improvement that was done a couple of years ago, but that was years in the making. So activism, the right way, constructively, breeds results. Those results help improve our community.
And what are some of the things that you're hearing from your constituents? You were on the campaign trail, and you've had opportunities to meet with people. What is their main concern in Little Armenia?
That we want to make the business community stronger, that we want our streets to look better and be cleaner, and we want infrastructure improvements, and that we want to address the homeless problem. And so I'll start with the homeless problem. I introduced a motion, working closely with my colleagues Felipe Fuentes and Gil Cedillo, who is chair of the Housing Committee, and we are working on a housing plan for the city of Los Angeles. We've never really had a housing policy, and I'm calling out specifically addressing the homeless with permanent supportive housing for the homeless, and earmarking funding to actually go toward construction of that. So it's 4 main priorities: permanent supportive housing for the homeless. workforce housing for young professionals or not young professionals, senior housing, and veterans housing. The market is such in Los Angeles that almost everyone's priced out of it. A couple of generations ago, you could be a new professional, a new school teacher, a new nurse just out of nursing school, and you could actually buy a house in Los Angeles. No one can do that anymore unless you have some sort of inheritance, because everyone's priced out of the market. So we need to do two things. We need to keep the affordable housing we have, and we've already lost, in the last 30 years, we've lost 400,000 units of affordable housing, and that's not an exaggeration. So we need to keep the affordable housing we have, and we need to build more, and we can do it the right way based on past experience, and we're focusing in on our transit centers and our transit corridors.
And until these processes are in place, we do still have a significant homeless problem.
We do.
How is that being addressed?
We're greenlighting the first permanent supportive housing project since I've been council member, and it's going to be on Western, just south of Santa Monica. And this is by one of the top-notch nonprofits that knows how to do this right. They're called Step Up. Well, it's Step Up in Santa Monica, and they did Step Up on Vine, and now they're doing Step Up on Western. And it will provide over 200 beds, permanent supportive housing, which means it provides an apartment for someone who's formerly chronically homeless. And then on the bottom floor, there are medical services, mental health services, and other services that help them become healthy and keep them permanently housed. So I'm already doing it, and I'm doing more. And that's why it's so important for me that we can do this on a citywide basis.
And let's talk about gentrification, because it does have its benefits, but then you talk about people being displaced as a result of the shifting population. Has it helped the city, and where is that going?
I think where the problem has come from in the past is that perhaps the city kind of looked the other way while the market forces ran their course. Well, good government knows when to step in and when to insert some regulation and when not to. So when I talk about the affordable housing, I talk about that all the time because we've had a lack of a policy forever. We've never had one. We tried inclusionary zoning 12 years ago. It didn't work. It was struck down by the courts. It didn't have the support of the development community or the real estate industry. Without that, we're not going to have affordable housing. Had we had a policy and we hadn't lost 400,000 units in the last 30 years, we would be having a very different conversation about gentrification. What's happened is we've priced people out of their neighborhoods. I think it's been an unwitting sort of natural, organic thing that's happened, but it happened while no one was paying adequate attention. And what I want to tell viewers is that we're paying attention and that we're going to do something about it, because you don't have to sacrifice improvements to our neighborhood that everyone deserves, no matter what your income class or income level, for improvement and for providing good housing for people who need it and resources for people who, as I said, have been traditionally underserved. It's not about having it both ways, but it's also not about picking winners and losers. Gentrification has a negative connotation for a reason, but we can improve our neighborhoods and lift others with us on the way up.
And do you think that the businesses in your district are doing their civic duty? Are they responsible business citizens?
I think more or less they are. I think the business community needs our help too. And I think that we have to really take a look at how we put hurdles, quite frankly, in front of our small business keepers, because they have it the toughest. It's the mom and pops who have the storefront that can least afford an expensive expediter to send to City Hall to help them with their permitting or their expansion plans. I want to reverse that. I want the city to be in the business of serving our small businesses, because it's our small business owners that employ 3/4 of the people in Los Angeles. We need to serve them, because by serving our small business community, we are serving the people of LA.
All of these factors also weigh in on crime and safety. Where are we with that? Is crime higher? What are we doing with that?
Well, the good news is crime is down drastically. It's not just down mildly or a little bit, it's down drastically. Over the last 10 years in Hollywood, the Hollywood division area, serious crime, the violent crime called Part 1, is down by over 50%. So it's been a half reduction in the last 10 plus years. In the last year, it's down in double digits. So despite some high profile crimes that have got the media's attention recently or in the last 2 years, crime is down. That's the truth. We have to keep it going down. I talk about the unemployment rate being high. That's a factor in the crime rate as well. We've got to employ people. We've got to give people opportunities. Gang violence is down as well. And I think that's because of community policing, community involvement. That also engenders greater public safety. And then work with our gang intervention specialists, which I started way back when I was an activist in Glassell Park. I have a lot of friends in the gang intervention community, and they've been doing their work quietly over the last 10 plus years, and that's made a huge difference. Offer people who have some experience in gang life a way out, and keep their children from ever joining, so that they can have, get it into the mainstream of life and have a fulfilling life. I think it should be our mission to do that.
And are schools in this district, are we seeing an uptick in improvement, and is that what's happening?
I think we are, and I think that the whole gang intervention piece with our schools is a tight fit as well. We send our intervention specialists to the public schools. We have the outgrowth of our charter school system and the charter school movement. We have private schools, we have religious schools, the public schools. In my office, I'm formalizing those relationships for the first time ever, and I have an education deputy who's specific to focus on that, because I think our educational centers are our neighborhood centers, our schools. Way back in the day when I was in school, you could always go to the school after school or during the weekends, and that's where people gathered. That's where you played sports on the fields, and our schools are our community centers, and I want to bring that back. And when we formalize our relationships and share information and have the dialogue with our schools, it helps our neighborhoods, it helps our families, it makes our streets safer. That's where all the intel comes from people who live on the streets and they're there every day, and that makes our communities safer.
I hear a lot pros and cons about the charter school system. Do you think LAUSD is doing a good job in handling that process?
Here's what I think about that. I think charter schools are here to stay. It's state law. Co-location is a fact of life, meaning charter schools that are now co-located with public schools. It's the way it is. It's the way of now. And I'm not a parent. I don't have children. But if I did, I wouldn't care if it was a charter school, a public school, a private school. None of that would matter. What would matter to me is, where is the school that my child would have the best opportunity to, prosper in life? So I'm not going to get into the judgment piece of charter or non-charter. I support education, period. And I think that the school district is figuring out pretty well. And I was there for the early tensions 5-6 years ago across the whole district when the co-location movement began. And it was very problematic. But I think there's a peaceful coexistence that's taking place now, and I'm encouraged by it.
Okay, well, we're going to continue our conversation. We're going to have to take a short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. We're continuing our conversation with Councilmember Mitch O Farrell. We talked about all of the different socioeconomic elements that are driving District 13 and the city of LA in general. What about the Armenian community? You have 2 churches, 2 schools, community centers, social service centers. How do they fit in the larger picture when you're looking at the district and the city?
I think the more the merrier. I think that when you have that level of involvement, it makes a greater impact. and you have different voices adding to the conversation. When you have that and you have that level of activism, it just makes whatever the final result is going to be better informed. So I encourage a high level of activism. That's the world I come from as well. It's the language I speak. I understand the passions, and it makes for a better democracy, quite frankly.
Mm-hmm. And do you feel that each of them has a role? It's always interesting to gauge your perspective as an elected official. What are your expectations from these institutions, from these communities?
Everyone has a role, for sure. And I never ask of what their expectation is or what they're supposed to do for me. I always ask and want them to ask what I can do for them. But they don't really have to too much, because I'm out there in the world a lot with the community walks, and I am of service, and as is my staff. So I want to make sure that everyone understands that you don't have to look too far to get a hold of me. I'm out in the community all the time. We're doing another walk this Saturday in Hollywood, so we're around. But the services of my office are always available. And this is the beginning. I'm a new council member, so we're building these relationships, and we're going to do some great things together. I'm excited about it.
And earlier you mentioned your multi-year experience in the city and your residency. Have you seen a change or a shift in civic engagement? Is it better, more, less?
I have, and I think it's much better. I think it's much better. I was there at the beginning of the advent of the neighborhood council system back in 1999 when the charter change was approved by voters. Starting in 2000, those early meetings on the formation of neighborhood councils began. I was involved in that. Previous to that, I was involved in my own neighborhood association and active in my community. And there's always been a community of activists. It's a tradition, right, in our neighborhoods. However, I think there are more now than ever before, and that has helped make our communities safer. That has helped sort of flesh out the community policing piece, because where there's activism, there's improvement. And I think that people should air their passions in public, because that's a good dialogue to have, and like I said, to formulate solutions that make our neighborhoods better, and those come from the neighborhoods and the organizations. So the more the merrier.
So you feel that the citizenship is more empowered, I guess, to take part in civic life?
I do. And I don't take it for granted that we're just done. There are still pockets, still neighborhoods that we're working with very diligently to cultivate that kind of activism so that people understand that they can control their own destiny, and that I am here, the city is here to help them with that goal, with that vision. I'm here to work with everyone for that. There are the neighborhoods that have been somewhat left behind. Those are the neighborhoods that I'm walking in the most. We're going door to door.
Which are they?
We're doing a lot of work in historic Filipino town, in East Hollywood, across East Hollywood, and Little Armenia. And when we go and knock on doors, we speak the language, and we invite all of the agencies that are active in the area already, so it's an outreach piece for the agencies as well. They become better informed on the constituencies they serve, and then I hear in person from a constituent what they need at their doorstep. It's important for me that my constituents hear from me, not just during campaign season, but while I'm the council member, and that when I go door to door and I say, I'm your council member, how can I help you? I'm not asking them for anything except for feedback. That's all I'm asking. It's different than going and knocking on a door and saying, will you vote for me? So it's thrilling for me to be able to just go and say, here's what the city can do for you. Do you have some feedback for me? What do you need help with on your street? Mm-hmm. And it's a great interaction to have.
And you're in the trenches, and Hollywood has this universal kind of glamour appeal. What do you tell those people who immediately see Hollywood and they think it's all, limousines and champagne?
Yes. I think that they're not seeing the real Hollywood. That to me, and I think the glamour of Hollywood, the history has its place. I value it, I treasure it, and I love it. But the real Hollywood is neighborhoods. That's the Hollywood that I know. That's the Hollywood that I moved to. And that Hollywood needs attention, it needs work, it needs improvement, and it can get there. And the beauty is that we have the real neighborhoods, and then we have that layer of the old glamour of Hollywood right there. So it's a really great neighborhood. There's just nothing like it in the world. It's a very special place.
Actually, one of the neighborhoods that has been impacted by the recent economic downturn has been a portion of the Little Armenia area, specifically the Armenian Relief Society Social Service Center, yes, where essentially for the past 8 months they've been running on volunteer services, mm-hmm, but nevertheless serving mm-hmm, the community. Are there efforts to revitalize that social service center which serves so many people?
Yes, absolutely. The Armenian Relief Society and the Social Services Center has been here for decades, and I want to strengthen it. I'm here to support it because their work never lets up. The work here never lets up, and people still need help with immigration. They still need help with translation. They still need to be in contact with the services that the county and the city offers. And that's why I'm happy to be presenting a $50,000 grant to the Armenian Relief Society, and we'll be there the whole time I'm council member to support the efforts
and
here.
I'm sure the organization and the community will be happy to know that they can open the doors again. Very good. Well, thank you. What are some things that you're looking forward to as we go into to finish out your first year as city councilman?
Well, the first sort of 1-year anniversary stuff is already starting to come up, and it's exciting. For example, not far from here will be the Fringe Festival, and it's a cultural festival about live theater and live performance art, music, stage plays, etc. And after the election last year, way before I was ever sworn in, I went and kicked it off, and it was in June. Well, we're already planning for it. So it's very exciting that those sort of 1-year things are coming up, and now that I'm the council member, I'm looking forward to all sorts of things. But I really am, at heart, quite a nerd. I mean, a geek. I mean, I really thrive on what makes this city tick. And I thrive on it because it's fascinating to approach the nuts and bolts of how the city can work better and how that directly and positively impacts the lives of Angelenos. So that's the part that I'm excited about more than anything else.
And how's City Hall? We had a new mayor, we have a lot of new council members. How's that dynamic working out for you?
It's a wonderful environment. There's an energy that took hold on day one, on July 1st, and it's half of the city council's new. There are, in fact, 8 of us are almost brand new out of the 15. New mayor, new city controller, new city attorney. There's an energy, there's an expectation, I would say, amongst all of us to really get things done, that we're cognizant of the fact that this is a very special era that we're entering, and that what we do and how we handle the challenges before us are going to be impactful for years to come. So I take that responsibility very seriously, and I'm thrilled and honored to be in this position.
And what are some of the challenges, very quickly, so everyone will be kind of on the same page?
Sure. Los Angeles is becoming more and more, and has been for a while, but more and more an international destination. We are the 2nd largest city in the United States. We are the Pacific Rim city. Our port, our airport, our public transit system, our growth, economic development, the construction boom that is being seen downtown and across the city and into Hollywood, the way we grow, how we grow, what we build into this growth that benefits Angelenos for decades to come, our educational system, the Promise Zone. We have all these things, a new park that's going to be built over the freeway, over the 101, right here in Little Armenia.
That's what Adam Schiff was talking about a couple of weeks ago in that seat.
And I did some upfront work on that, on the environmental impact review process while on staff of my predecessor. That's going to be iconic as well. So there are lots of things coming our way, and we're going to be ready for it so that it gets done right and it gets done efficiently. inefficiency has been a problem in the past. We want to make sure that no one's asleep at the wheel, that we get this right, that we move forward efficiently, enthusiastically, and in a really wonderful new way. I think it's a renaissance that we're experiencing, and we need to make the most of it.
It's interesting because after the redistricting, Little Hollywood kind of fell into the larger Armenian electoral kind of district where you have the state assembly, Congress, and all of that kind of included in that. How are you working with the state and federal representatives that represent this community?
Very closely. Very, very strong ties with Congressman Adam Schiff. Great relationships with our state assembly member, our state senator, our county supervisor, and we'll be getting a new one. But the relationships are very strong. And I think that, I mean, I just put it out there. My expectation is that we're going to do wonderful things together. There's an incredible talent out there in the world with elected officials, and I'm thrilled with Congressman Adam Schiff. I think he's a real leader and a partner in this. He's a believer, he's an optimist, and he knows that this is a very special place. And so I think we're in very good hands with Congressman Schiff.
Well, thank you so much. It was great chatting with you and catching up. And we'll have you back again in a couple of months to see where we are and how we can all work together.
My pleasure, and I look forward to coming back. Thank you.
And thanks all of you at home for watching. Have a great evening. Good night.